Hi everybody, TJ Mack of Vintage Cards and Nostalgia here. And today I thought it would be fun to share my 10 favorite baseball cards of non-Hall of Famers. And I want to share these cards because they really do have an important role within my collection. Now, like any top 10 list, it's not set in stone, but rather it's a snapshot in time. It's a reflection of how I feel about these cards right now. But more importantly, it's a glimpse into how my collecting journey has really evolved and how these non-Hall of Fame players fit into the narrative of my collection. Now, when I first started collecting as an adult many years ago, I focused primarily on Hall of Famers, the legends whose names are etched in baseball history, men like Willie Mays and Mickey Mantle and Roberto Clemente. Now, these players had larger-than-life careers, and they're often the focal point of many collections. And of course, that's for good reason. Their achievements are remarkable, and their cards often hold immense value, both monetarily and sentimentally. But you see, as my collecting journey continued, I found myself increasingly drawn to the stories of the players who never made it to the Hall of Fame. These men had careers that they didn't reach the heights of immortality, but they had contributions to the games that are very significant. Now, in many ways, these non-Hall of Famers, they offer a different kind of connection to baseball. While the Hall of Fame is a place for celebrating the pinnacle of success, the stories of non-Hall of Famers are often more nuanced and personal. There are players whose careers were marked by resilience or perseverance. They may have had moments of brilliance, but they're now mostly forgotten by today's average sports fan. However, in their day, some of these men were stars who drew as much excitement from a young boy when pulled from a pack as Teddy Ballgame or Hammer and Hank. While others of these men, they played in the shadows of the greats of their time. You'll see players whose stars may have shone brightly for just a moment before flaring out. And yet, their stories are important. Now, before I get started, I want to point out that I picked no player twice, and I didn't include Pete Rose because in my view, he would be a Hall of Famer if not for betting on baseball. I hope you enjoy this top 10. Number 10 is the 1976 Topps J.R. Richard. When I first started getting into baseball as a young kid in 1980, J.R. Richard was as big a name as Nolan Ryan, Steve Carlton, and Tom Seaver. He was coming off back-to-back MLB leading 300-plus strikeout seasons and had 2 top 5 finishes for the National League Cy Young. He was paired up with the recently signed Nolan Ryan to give the Astros arguably the best 1-2 punch in baseball that would take them well into the 80s. That is until Richard suffered a stroke while warming up on July 30th, 1980, and he was never the same pitcher again. This 1976 Topps card, featuring the fireballer and a cool 70s Astros jacket depicting a shooting star, is a metaphor for a glorious career that ended way too soon. Number 9 is the 1979 Topps Dale Murphy. This is by far my favorite Murphy card. While this card came out a year before he made his first All-Star appearance, I love the image of the 2-time MVP stepping into his swing in that well-tailored Braves uniform with the bright white and the red pinstripes. Then you have the 2-tone blue and white helmet with the lowercase a. Boy, does that card take me back. My first National League heroes when becoming a baseball fan were Dave Parker, Steve Garvey, and Dale Murphy. What a time to start following the game. Number 8 is the 1941 play ball Frank McCormick. This is a new pickup, and McCormick made a brief debut in 1934, but his career was mostly from 1937 to 1948. He predominantly played for the Reds before finishing with the Phillies and then the Boston Braves. Now, he was a superstar player for a few years that fans of the late 30s and early 40s certainly would have known about. He won the National League MVP in 1940 and had 2 other top 5 finishes. In 6,200 plate appearances, he struck out just 189 times, and he had 3 seasons in 1939, 1941, and 1943 where he hit more home runs than strikeouts. He was also maybe the best defensive first baseman of his era. Now, he ended his career with a .299 batting average and over 1,700 hits. And I just love the look of this card, with McCormick finishing his swing in front of that colorful background. Number 7 is the 1977 O-Pee-Chee Mark the Bird Fidrych. And I've said before that if I could go back to see one player in person, the Bird would be on my short list. Now, thankfully, plenty of video exists of his antics on the mound. He brought such fun and zaniness to the game that it had to be an event to see him in person. I would make sure I got a seat close enough to watch him talk to the ball, drop to one knee as he manicured the mound, and then see him strut around with nervous energy between outs. It would be a lot of fun, and whenever I see this card, it just reminds me of the joy of baseball and collecting, and to not take this stuff too seriously. Number 6 is the 1963 Topps Sam McDowell. Yes, his rookie card may be 1962, but it's a tiny floating head shared with 4 other players. I want to see Sudden Sam on his first solo card, which is his beautiful 1963 Topps with vibrant yellow and red that just pops off the card. And here you have the Indians flamethrower, who was compared favorably to Koufax during this era, and a posed shot depicting him in his windup. Now, he struggled with control issues, arm problems, and alcoholism, but when he was on, there were a few better. He led the American League in strikeouts 5 times and the Major Leagues 3 years in a row from 1968 to 1970. We saw just how great he could be, and yet there's still a what-if element that makes his story to me just so compelling. Number 5 is the 1957 Topps Rocky Colavito Rookie. I bought this card a couple of years ago with a gift card from my oldest daughter for Father's Day. Colavito was one of my late father-in-law's favorite players, and I wanted to get this card as a tribute to him since my oldest daughter was very close to her grandpa. Now, Rocky, he was also a favorite of my late dad's when he played for the Tigers in the early 60s. So this card is very special meaning to me, far beyond anything Rocky ever did on the field, even though his career was very impressive, slugging 374 home runs and having 3 top 5 MVP finishes. I plan to give this card to my daughter someday, but that's a subject for another video. Now, number 4 is this 1955 Bowman Tommy Byrne. Now, this is another very recent pickup that I got around Christmas time. It's not a cheap card for what is considered a common because it's in the tougher high number series, and it's such a beautiful card. I first saw it on one of Alex from the channel Bowman 53's Sunday night live streams, and I instantly fell in love with the photo. You have Byrne in the bright white Yankee uniform with the pinstripes and the iconic interlocking NY on his cap. And there's just so much going on with this card. How the full body image fits in nicely within the TV screen, and the way it has just a bit of a 3-dimensional look due to the placement of his left leg behind him. There's also what appears to be pregame batting practice going on in the background, with a couple of gloves lying in the grass and two players holding bats. Some have speculated that the player holding the bat in front of him to the left is Mickey Mantle. Who knows for sure, but I do have my doubts. It does, though, add some intrigue and enhances the overall appeal of the card. And I just look at this card and I'm taken back. I hear the crack of the bat and the smell of the buttered popcorn in the stands as I settle in to watch one of the great dynasties in baseball history, the New York Yankees. And it's just a card that takes me back to another place in time, and I love it. Number 3 is the 1978 Topps Thurman Munson. Now, a year or so ago, this card wouldn't have been on this list. Like many, I thought his 1971 Topps is his best looking card. And maybe it is, but there's just something about this 1978 Topps that sticks with me the older that I get. You have the orange chest and knee protectors, coupled with a stoic looking Munson standing there on a bright, sunny day in Yankee Stadium. There's the blurred out crowd in the background, which draws your eye to the main subject, and it doesn't disappoint. This card is a time capsule to the late 70s and early 80s, as I remember chest protectors and pads that looked just like this when I played Little League Baseball. A card that really just takes me back. Number 2 is the 1974 Topps Steve Garvey. I'm a big fan of the photography in the 74 Topps set. While the quality certainly isn't up to par with modern issues like Stadium Club, Topps photographers, though, were doing a great job at that time of opening up different aspects of the game on small cards like never before. And this 74 Garvey is visually my favorite card of his. It looks like it could be used as a baseball logo, the way Garvey's profile is captured. The card also leaves some to the imagination to what is actually happening at the moment. Is this photo taken before, during, or after his at-bat? Then you have what I've talked about before, the photographic technique known as the bokeh effect that's being used on the crowd in the background, and you see varying degrees of blurriness that make it look like there's lights behind Garvey. It's just a fantastic card that I'd love to stare at. The number 1 card is the 1961 Topps Roger Maris. Maris is probably my favorite non-Hall of Fame baseball player to collect. I have his entire 1958 to 1968 Topps base run, which I'm satisfied with. I'm not really looking to add any of his other issues beyond that run. And of course, of those, the 61 Topps is the card that I enjoy most having, because it captures that historic season. While I love the 62, which shows the 61 home runs on the back of the card, if I could only have one Roger Maris, though, it would be this card here, which was issued during the season when the history was being made. The friendly rivalry between Mantle and Maris during that magical season will forever be a part of the history of the game. And it is my number 1 season that I wish I could have lived through. I love this design, but more so I love what this set represents to me as a baseball and Yankees fan. This card, along with the Mantle, reminds me of my dad, who would have been 13 when the season was going on. And I like to think that he was ripping open plenty of packs of Topps cards that summer and following the race in the newspaper. And this card, it's on my list of those that I want my family to keep long after I'm gone. And it's probably been with me so far for over 20 years. Well, there you have it. I appreciate you all joining me for this top 10. And until next time, have a great week.